A violent Venezuelan gang called Tren De Aragua, or TDA, has set up shop in New York City using migrant shelters as a base for their operation. The New York Police Department says the gang is responsible for thefts, high-end stores, and ride-by robberies and scooters. They're also selling something called 2C, or pink cocaine, which is a drug that's becoming more and more prevalent. TDA has also been linked to the shooting of two NY.
Now, you guys remember the pink cocaine, right? Now, the pink cocaine, right, is the same cocaine that was used by that girl, right? The pink cocaine was used by that girl in that car accident in Miami. You guys remember that? If you guys remember that, give me a thumbs up. If y'all don't, give me a thumbs down. Shout out to DC Precise. DC Precise said, what's the name of that Denzel movie? No doubt. It's the CI. Safe House. That's the joint. Yeah, the Safe House. Yeah. Facts, bro.
NYPD police officers. And New York isn't the only city dealing with TDA. From Chicago to Denver to New York City, there have been dozens of arrests that have been linked to the group. The Department of Homeland Security official told the New York Times that federal officials were, quote, working on more than 100 investigations linked to the gang at one point this year. And, quote, officers nationwide have made more than 50 arrests related to the gang. In Aurora, Colorado, there's still ongoing debate as to whether the gang was responsible for taking over an apartment building in a now viral video. Gangbangers can be seen roaming the halls with guns and seemingly breaking into apartments. This video, by the way, went so viral that even Donald Trump took notice of it. Here's what he said at the debate.
It's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio, Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country.
Okay. Now, let me ask you guys this question. Again, now that part right there, right? That's where Trump was doing good at in the debate, right? If you guys would agree that what Trump is saying is true right there, give me a thumbs up. If you guys would disagree and you don't think that what he's saying is true right there, then give me a thumbs down. Is what he's saying true? Or is what he's saying false?
Okay, so we're joined right now by somebody who used to be in a gang in Chicago, who went to prison for 20 years for murder, and he thinks that TDA is such a problem in the city that he fears an all-out turf war.
Now look at this. Ex-cons for Trump. Ex-cons for Trump. You went to jail for 20 years. Bro, you can't even vote. Ex-cons for Trump. Crazy work. Now, do y'all see what I'm talking about? These people that project. Now, this dude got all the answers on how to make the community, whatever you want to call it, better after running rampant, destroying it to the point where you're an ex-convict. And we should listen to you. Why? And you're going to project your degeneracy of your youth onto those of us who are living good, productive lives. I think that is people's choice if they want to be subject to listen to these people or not. I don't like being preached to by people that made every single mistake in the world. I don't. I'm not going to sit here and lie. And the reason why I don't is because, again, if you listen to all of these scorned black conservatives, most of these scorned black conservatives are either former Pookies who are so ashamed of their past history that they want to project it onto everybody to normalize that type of behavior to make themselves not look that bad. Or another talking point that they use is the single mom talking point. Most of these simps are the male embodiment of a female brain from being raised by that very single mother that they're shaming everybody else about being raised by, and most of us are not raised by single moms. This is another example. But let's see if this guy has anything valuable.
Biden let into our country.
Okay, so we're joined right now by somebody who used to be in a gang in Chicago, who went to prison for 20 years for murder, and he thinks that TDA is such a problem in the city that he fears an all-out turf war is about to break out between the TDA and local Southside gangs. Tyrone Muhammad is with us. He's now part of a group called Ex-Cons for Community and Social Change, Ex-Cons for Trump. Thank you so much for joining us. So why do you believe that a turf war might be imminent?
What you have to understand, thanks for having me, Jesse. What you have to understand is that Chicago gang culture is not like what it used to be, where during the Clinton 1994 crime bill, you removed men who actually controlled the streets that was rather respectful to his neighbors as well, if that's not oxymoronic, right? Rather respectful and also had a link to the communities that they lived or was involved with. Now you have a...
Now, let me ask y'all this question. Would you guys agree with that? If you guys agree with that, give me a thumbs up. If you guys don't agree with that, then give me a thumbs down. Now, my question is, what kind of link? What are we talking about here? What kind of link? What kind of link are we talking about here? Now, let me ask you guys this question. What did these gangs do for communities? According to he said that they had some type of link to the communities. What kind of link? Can anybody tell me the positive outcomes that any gangs had in any community? Shout out to Leonard. Leonard said he's trying to make gangs look like enemy combatants. It's just very interesting.
Situation where we have now cliques, crews, and sets that don't follow certain guidelines and structures.
So now this is what you see, right? On YouTube, you see, young generations blaming the old generations, for political failures. And in the streets, you see the old generation blaming the young generation for failures. Shout out to Leonard. Leonard said it's a slippery slope. There are several different angles. Facts. We gotta ice skate uphill on this one. We gotta ice skate uphill on this one. But I already see some similarities to what's going on, what I'm saying, current day. Right? Current day, you got the younger generation blaming the old generation, right? And right here, we got the old generation blaming the young generation. You know what I'm saying? Now, let's look at this, right? I told y'all we will revisit this. Now, we specifically talking about Chicago. Chi-Town, Dollar Bill, you know what I'm saying? Brandon Johnson. Right? So let's look at this. Let's look at this real quick. Folk Nation. The Folk Nation is an alliance of street gangs originating in Chicago, established in 1978. The alliance has since spread throughout the United States. particularly the region, the Midwest region. Shout out to the Midwest of the United States, right? Now, why is it in the Midwest? We know why it's in the Midwest. It goes without saying, right? The folk nation was formed on November 11th. Oh, there's some Scorpios. Oh, we're not supposed to talk about zodiac signs. Within the confines of the Stateville Correctional Center. So it's arguable to say that the folks nation is a quote unquote prison gang. Is that correct? If you guys would agree, give me a thumbs up. If you guys would disagree, give me a thumbs down. Larry Hoover, the chairman, and then you'll hear Rick Ross. Rick Ross worships Larry Hoover a lot. You'll hear Rick Ross barely breathing, you know what I'm saying, and getting that out when he's doing what he attempts to call rapping or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Oh, Larry Hoover. You know what I'm saying? That's Rick Ross talking about that, worshiping this. You know what I'm saying? The chairman of the Gangster Disciple Nation created the idea of the alliance and persuaded many leaders of large black, white, and Latino gangs from Chicago to join. So when people ask, what about that black and brown coalition? This is why I always be like, what about it? What about it? You know what I'm saying? What about it? There go one right there. Folk Nation was created to protect and counter from People Nation invading neighborhoods of People Nation. Now, who is the People Nation? Look at this. The People Nation is an alliance of street gangs generally associated with the Chicago area. Their rivals are the Folk Nation alliance of gangs. So these gangs unified to be divided. And now look at this. You see when they were formed? They were formed in 1978. In 2024, they sitting there talking about if they don't unify, which this is a unit, this, right? This and this. These are both unifications, right? These are both unifications. They're already unified to be divided. And now they're talking about if further unity doesn't occur, they're under threat of these Venezuelan prison gangs, the Venezuelan gang, Tren De Aragua. I don't know what to say, man. I don't know what to say. Sound like politics to me. That's why they got a Trump hat on.
Men who actually controlled the streets that was rather respectful to his neighbors as well, if that's not oxymoronic, right? Rather respectful, and also had a link to the communities that they lived or was involved with. Now you have a situation where we have now cliques, crews, and sets that don't follow certain guidelines and structures that were set by founding gang leaders and founding gang literature, right? So what happens is now you get these new gangs, these new terrorists. I call them terrorists because the very fact that you can.
He called them terrorists. He don't call them young bloods. He called them terrorists. He don't call them young bloods. He called them terrorists. Hey, I got a question though. Who responsible for them terrorists? Who created them terrorists? Who made that? Who created that culture?
And allow people to cross our borders and potentially harm American citizens that go unchecked with no regulation, and then placed in communities that's already disinvested and some people would go as far as to say they allowed y'all to do the same thing. Would you, if you guys would agree, give me a thumbs up. If y'all would disagree, give me a thumbs down. Potentially harm American citizens.
I mean, don't gangs potentially harm American citizens anyway? So, I mean, what is this? Are we in the? What is this?
And structures that were set by founding gang leaders and founding gang literature, right? So what happens is now you get these new gangs, these new terrorists. I call them terrorists because the very fact that you can allow people to cross our borders, potentially harming citizens that go unchecked with no regulation, and then placed in communities that's already disinvested and violated.
Well, one of the people that are responsible for the community disinvestment, gangs. Now, mind you, right, taxpayer dollars should be going into those communities, right? But at the same time, I mean, are gangs improving the value of a community, or are they decreasing the value? I'm curious if somebody would ask, in the areas that you all considered your turf, what did you all do to bring up the property value? What would the answer to that question be? Would there be an answer? What did you all do throughout the time of your existence and throughout the time of you all having control over that territory? What did you all do to bring up the property value? What would the answer to that question be? Because these are all these people make these are choices. Just like he chose to come on here to News Nation and speak his piece. All of those years of resume building that he did, those were all choices too, right? Okay. Value added, value decreased. What'd you do? What'd you do? Shout out to everybody that's watching. I appreciate you guys. If you all haven't smashed the like button yet, please do me a favor. Take a moment, smash that like button. Also, if you guys have not hit the bell, please take a moment, hit that bell. And also, please share this stream to your social media. We got 23 people watching. Shout out to y'all. And we got 38 likes. Let's try to get the likes to 60.
By the policies of this current administration in Chicago and big cities and throughout this country is a violation of democracy and really treason.
Now, who voted? Now, listen, let me ask y'all this. If the politicians are committing treason, is it fair to say that the people that put the politicians in place are indirectly responsible for the treason? Because the politicians said what they were going to do and the people voted for them. I mean, these are facts. We know this. We've seen it. There's video proof of it. There's no point in denying it. People can deny, but the footage is out there. So if these politicians are quote unquote engaged in treason, are the people that supported these politicians also engaged in treason? That's my question for you guys. Don't be shy.
The policies of this current administration in Chicago and big cities and throughout this country is a violation of democracy and really treason. And with that being said, now these young men don't live by those same codes. And these guys come in, they blend in with the Puerto Ricans, the Mexicans, and other Latin Americans, and they're integrating into their gang culture.
Duh. Who you think they was going to integrate with? More than likely, right? Cultural similarities. Well, for one, it's probably easiest to deal with people that you can communicate with. They speak the same language. Now, the problem is, right? We just saw where we read what's going on with the folk nation. I mean, you're going to have these people integrated with one part of the folk nation. People get mad when I be like, yo, some people don't even do crime right. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell anybody. I know a lot to tell anybody. It's just, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, people ain't gonna listen. You know what I'm saying?
And they blend in with the Puerto Ricans, the Mexicans, and other Latin Americans. And
now let me ask you this. How let's that's kind of complicated in itself, right? Let's go through that. How do they blend in with the Puerto Ricans, the Latinos, and the Latin Americans? How does that particular element work? And I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like, maybe if they had some of the same type of guidelines that some of these other people had, then maybe that blending really wouldn't be a problem, because you'd be able to readily identify people who are your issue. Like, you might have caused a problem of camouflage. Right? I mean, if you guys would agree, give me a thumbs up. If you guys would disagree, give me a thumbs down.
And big cities and throughout this country is a violation of democracy and really treason. And with that being said, now these young men don't live by those same codes. And these guys come in, they blend in with the Puerto Ricans, the Mexicans, and other Latin Americans, and they're integrating into their gang culture. And what they're doing is starting to set up.
Now, let me ask y'all this. Do the Aryan gangs, you know what I'm saying, do they have these kind of issues of quote unquote people blending in and not being able to tell who's who? I think they got the Aryan gangs, the prison gangs, and you know what I'm saying? And then I think they got another one called the Woods. Do they have these kind of problems?
Up in our various neighborhoods, taking over abandoned buildings, taking boards down, making those buildings their own, and then setting up outside of the shelters that they're in to pretty much as a way of tagging those blocks and community to say, hey, this is our turf. And before long, if we don't get in front of this, there will be a powder keg of bloodshed, because there's already a disconnect in terms of culture and language.
So Tyrone, real quick, about 30 seconds. What are you and your organization? What are the community? What can they do to fight back against this?
Well, we've been on the ground since the beginning. We've been fighting forcefully, letting the Democratic Party and the policy makers in this Chicago know that it is unacceptable for them to continue to violate our communities. And as black men returning.
So, I mean, at the same time, though, right? Then it seems to me that the voters are if you continue to have a problem with Democratic politicians, ultimately the voters that keep giving those people power, the voters are the problem. If the voters were voting for different people, those particular politicians wouldn't be the problem. If you guys would agree, give me a thumbs up. If you guys would disagree, give me a thumbs down. Again, do you guys see what I'm saying about how this isn't rocket science?
Citizens who've actually had a hand in the terroristic effect of violence in these communities, we're on the front line now saying, hey, we have to protect our communities and our neighborhoods and our blocks.
Now, let me ask you guys this. Do you protect the neighborhood? I mean, I think it's a little bit too late. You protect your neighborhoods and your blocks by making sure that you own all of the businesses, by making sure that you have all of the politicians there, by making sure that you have a strong community with the kids growing up with a future and the parents of middle and upper class people because you're making money. That's how you protect the community, not walking around with a bandana on your head with an AR-15. You have the people with bulletproof vests on, police and security guards guarding your businesses so you don't have to have gangs in your community. Somebody missed class that day, and it's costing people a couple decades later. I mean, to me, you know what I'm saying? It sounds good, but it's ultimately too late. If the community was controlled, most of the resources would have been owned, and the government would not have been able to just come in there and say, this is our building. It's a government building. We're going to turn it into a migrant shelter. Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Shout out to Carlton. Carlton said they don't protect SHIT. I say the gangs on both sides need to go. Big facts. Big facts. This is a little bit too late. I mean, all of the stuff that he's talking about can be done through politics, and you've been on the street for all these years, and in 2024 you decide to get political with it. I don't know what to say. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Tyrone, thank you for amplifying this issue, coming on, exposing it. I think it was a wake-up call for a lot of people. Tyrone Muhammad, thank you.
Is it a wake-up call for a lot of people? Is it? I don't know if it is or not. I don't know if we can. Let me shout out to y'all. Is this a wake-up call for a lot of people?